What a day it is to be recording the market update right here in Calgary. Over the past 1 month, the market has been flooded with fear from all directions. The news media outlets constantly promoting news headlines because of the uncertainty in the tariffs, the political situations, the polls between the conservatives and the liberals, and every single thing from what they're announcing when it comes to policies and how it might affect the future of the housing market, but also the future of Canada when it comes to the economy situation that we are seeing right now, from recession fears to stagflation. And all of this has really put the market in turmoil, put a lot of people into confusion, and they have chosen to rather stay on the sidelines. But those who have participated in the market have seen a lot of different things unfold. And that's what this month's market report is about, to help better inform you to make a decision in the market going forward. Because if you feel like you have been crippled with fear and you're just completely unsure and caught up with what people around you are telling you, the water cooler talk on the high level of uncertainty of the future of Canada, then hopefully this market report will help you understand at least the macroeconomics of the Calgary real estate market by itself, because each market does operate differently. 100% what's going to happen to Canada is also going to have impacts on Calgary, but at the same time, Calgary has different things, different headwinds, different tailwinds going for it locally, and that is extremely important to understand. As far as the tariffs go, Trump finally announced today that the bare minimum that he's going to apply to most countries now across the world, major trade partners, are a minimum of 10%. And certain countries are seeing percentages as high as 36% when it comes to the tariffs. As of this point, there is still no indication of what the applications are for Canada, because Canada wasn't on that list that he displayed during his news press conference. However, that being said, one thing's for certain. Starting midnight today, the tariffs on the automobile sector for 25% is going to take effect. And let me tell you, all the news articles, everything I've researched, and everybody I've spoken to from the industry, but also my clients who are remotely related to the automobile industry, are just talking about the devastating effects that these tariffs are going to have, not just on Canada, but also US. There is just no way a lot of these companies are going to be able to move forward, and it's going to have devastating effects not just on the automobile industry, but also suppliers for automobiles. That's going to take effect, I believe, in May. However, companies are already starting to prepare for how they could divert their business to other parts or adapt around this, because something that has been so long established between US and Canada as trade routes for the automobile industry is now completely being challenged and wrecked. There is no quick way to adapt. Some articles are even calling for mass layoffs within the next 2 weeks in this sector. And if you've been following my videos so far, then you know that what my perspective is on the Ontario real estate market. Ontario and Vancouver are already doing terribly, and Calgary is actually going in the other direction, and we are doing significantly better off than those two markets. The way I explain it to my clients is, if Canada is a sinking ship, we are just on the better part of that sinking ship. It doesn't mean we are completely in the clear. As far as Ontario goes, their car manufacturing industry is definitely going to take a huge hit, considering already the amount of delinquencies and the mortgage arrears that we are seeing. If there are more layoffs, then I can only leave it to you to imagine what the impact of that is going to be on the real estate market there. But now, this is not a video to go in depth about the economy or the Trump tariffs effects or the political situation. There are other videos that I make that go in depth into that and try to uncover and unravel what is potentially going to happen to Canada as an impact from all of that. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball. These are all just based on the daily conversations that I have from people within the industry, and what are the opinions that I'm collecting, and where the mass approach is for economists going forward. Before we get started with the Calgary real estate report for this month, hey guys, it's Iyer, your Calgary realtor, and this is a channel completely data driven, focused on helping you understand not just the Calgary real estate market, but Canada's economy, political situation, and all other things that affect just our macro economy in Calgary, but also markets around Canada. And this is so that it empowers you to help you make a better decision going forward, move with confidence in the market, and help you win in 2025. So now, without further ado, let's get into the summary by the Calgary Real Estate Board and how they summarize the last 1 month and what's been happening in Calgary's market. So right here, you can see sales actually declined by 19% year over year. and this has been totaling 2,159 units. So sales slowed across all property types, with the steepest decline seen in higher density segments, and we'll get into what that is. It is important to note, however, that sales still remain stronger than anything reported throughout 2015 to 2020, where our economy faced significant economy challenges and job loss. Easing demand has been met with gains in new listings and rising inventories, helping our market shift back towards a more balanced conditions. So overall, our supply is increasing, especially the new listings this month saw a significant improvement. While we also saw an improvement in sales, it is not as strong as what we expected to see, for example, compared to the last 2 or 3 years, but we are heading to a more healthier market, towards a more balanced market, and we are definitely above the bad years that were there for Calgary in 2015 to 2020 overall. March reported 4,000 new listings, causing sales to new listings ratio to drop to 54%, low enough to support further inventory gains. Total residential inventory reached 5,154 units, and the months of supply pushed to 2.4 months. Significant change from last year, with limited supply options across all property types and price ranges. Conditions reflect a better balance between a seller and a buyer today. However, the market significantly varies depending on location, price point, and property type. And I have specifically highlighted this in a different color because I strongly believe in this. It is very, very important to understand which local market you're looking to buy into, what's your price point, and what's the property type, because these stats dramatically change depending on where you're looking at. As far as both detached and semi-detached prices, they remain consistent with peak pricing and continue to rise, while apartments and row townhomes continue to report prices slightly lower than last year's peak. And this is a complete flip in script, because those of you who were mildly aware to the real estate market in Calgary over the past 2 and 3 years, apartments and row townhouses were all the rage, saw significant gains for the last 2 and 3 years, and now that is tapering off. So let's get into what the benchmark pricing is depending on which part of Calgary you're looking into. So right over here, you can see as far as north goes, they saw a $5,200 increase month over month. Northeast saw a $500 increase. East dropped by $2,700. And all three of these have also lost out year over year. And as far as Southeast goes, we saw an increase of $3,200. South saw an increase of $3,000. West, significant gains at $14,900. And this comes as no surprise, because one of the things I do highlight in my market report is that this year is going to be a separating year for good areas versus bad. Over the last 2-3 years, it was a rising tide raises all boats. All areas went up just because you could sell a shoebox in multiple offers. But right now, good areas such as West, where it's highly preferable by families looking for great schools with great quality of living, even Northwest for that matter, are going to see those continued gains, because that's where people want to put their money and invest into their future and want longer term homes versus just pure flipping opportunities that we saw dramatically take hold in the last 2-3 years in East. And as far as city center goes, we saw a $5,800 increase month over month. Year over year dropped by 1.8%. And this is total residential, so it covers all property types. Moving on to pricing by specific property types across Calgary, not by area type. So total residential is $592,500, and that is a month over month increase of $4,900. As far as our peak pricing last year in 2024 was $608,000. So we are not too far off from our peak pricing last year. We did correct over the last 4 or 5 months heading into December and Jan, but now we are reversing trends and coming back up. So it won't be really long before we hit that 608 again. I would say probably another 2 months, and then we should be back at that pricing, if not more. As far as detached goes, we are at $769,800. That's a $9,300 increase month over month. And as far as our peak pricing in 2024 was $767,000. So compared to that, we are actually above. So we have already overtaken our highest benchmark price for detached last year. And we're just going to continue going up from here as I'm seeing a lot of demand for detached homes. As far as semi-detached goes, we are at 691,000, so that's an $8,400 increase month over month. And our peak pricing for 2024 was 687,900. So we have obviously taken over that too, and we are above 2024's peak pricing when it comes to semi-detached. That, however, is not the case for row and apartments. In row, we are at 454,000. So that's a $7,200 increase month over month. And year over year, so compared to last March, we are high by 2.1%. But our 2024 peak pricing was 464,000. So we have not reached that yet. And as far as apartment pricing goes, we are at 336,100. That's a $1,900 increase month over month. And 2024 peak pricing is 346. So again, we have not hit our highs of 2024 just yet. Across all property types, we've pretty much seen month over month gains. So the entire market is taking a turn and trending back up. And we are definitely heading into a spring market. Sales were very slow for the first half of the month. A lot of these sales actually happened on the second 2 weeks or the last 2 weeks of the month. So it really made up for all the new listings that we were seeing rush into the market at the start of March. And that's why in my last video, I told buyers that now is a great opportunity to put a lot of lowball offers, and that window is closing very fast. I would say at most we maybe have another 4 or 5 days of lowball offers. Even that's going to be a bit hard. The last 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of people did get properties below list price, and that was because a lot of panic sellers were entering the market in the month of March as they were scared with the Trump tariffs, the economy situation, and everything that was being promoted on news outlets, and then with the elections being called. And that peak fear after seeing 3 years of gains is justified. A lot of people just wanted to get out and cut it and go, and that's fair. So, but there were no buyers at the same time because the same panic was hitting them. And the buyers that stayed in the market got great deals. But now we're seeing towards the second half of March, that rush come back in as we start heading towards a good spring market. So as far as sales go, the month before that, we were at 1,221 sales. So the sales did increase month over month to 2,159. Year over year, that's a 20% drop. Of course, last year, our sales was significantly higher. We had peak sales for the last 2 or 3 years. But as far as we go now, we increased by about 500 month over month, which is decent. And when we compare to longer term trends for a decade, where are we at? So as you can see here, as far as compared to last 4 years, of course, we are below last 4 years in every March compared. But when we look at the last decade, you can see here between 2020 and 11, about here, that would be our middle point where we would expect to be. And that's exactly where we are. But now if we take away the tough years that Calgary had between 2015 and 2020, where the sales are almost expected to be lower, if we just average it out to around here, we're exactly in the middle of that 10-year average. So our sales are actually healthy, and it's exactly where we would expect to be for March, with exception of the last 4 years, which were an anomaly. If we look at new listings is at 4,000. So that was a significant improvement over Feb, and of course that is because of the amount of rush we saw sellers entering the market. So from 2,830 the previous month, we now hit 4,000. That's an increase of almost 1,200 new listings. What kind of impact did that have on inventory? If you look at our inventory actually increased by 1,000. That is a huge increase for month over month. Last month we were at 4,145, so now we are at 5,154. What does that mean when we compare it to the last decade? So if you look at the last decade, first of all, again, the last 4 years, significantly low inventory, definitely not normal when you compare to the last 10 years. In fact, the only year that had that kind of inventory was 2014, and we all know how things played out in 2014. There was peak pricing. In fact, a lot of apartments that were bought in 2014 have still not seen gains till this day. So 2014 is also a terrible year to compare it to in terms of the amount of inventory available. A healthy inventory is probably somewhere between these years, and 2015 to about 2020 was like peak inventory. That's when all the panic was, and we saw significantly more listings, much harder to sell. And even if we plot ourselves somewhere in the middle here, we are at the bottom of it all. So even if we consider that we increase a little bit more as we go forward, and I do expect all of these for the past decade to increase as we're going forward because we're comparing month to month. So we are doing pretty well in inventory, significantly improved compared to last year, putting us in more balanced conditions. And so when we look at all of this, sales, new listings, inventory, what does that mean for months of supply? Last month we were at 2.41, now we are at 2.39. So we have actually dropped a little bit, we have tightened. So even though we are still heading very well into a balanced market, the market has still tightened a little bit. And that is because very specific sectors and property types are the ones that are getting tighter. And we will take a look at what that is. So looking at months of inventory by area and by property type, this is extremely important because all the stats so far have been very general about either an entire quadrant or an entire property type. But right here, you can see very specifically, depending on the property you're looking for or the area you're looking for, how much pressure you can expect or how difficult it is going to be to sell your property. So the higher you are on this graph, the harder it is to sell. The higher on this graph, the easier it is to buy. So for example, if you're looking for an apartment in Northeast, even though our inventory dropped significantly month over month, we were just above 5 last month and now we are below 4.5, but that is significantly higher than, say, the rest of the city. And same thing applies to, for example, city center is also pretty high. Southeast also has pretty high amount of inventory, especially around the McKinsey town area. And we are also seeing a high amount of listings, I would say, in Seaton and a little bit in Auburn Bay. So a lot of those listings coming on the market this month saw a significant increase in inventory. All the red lines here are where we were last month. So if we dropped, then we got tighter. So for example, if you were looking for a detached in city center, it's going to be a little harder to find that this month because now we have lesser inventory. Versus if the opposite has happened, for example, if you're looking for a row townhouse in Southeast, you're going to have an easier time this month because you've seen an increase in inventory. And so definitely feel free to pause the screen and depending on your situation, see where you're at, and it will just give you a sentiment of what the market's doing in your specific area for your property type, and you will know what to do in terms of what your offer should look like. For example, if you're in an extremely tight market, semi-detached in Southeast, you might have to go slightly above list price. You might have to compete a little bit more, right? Versus if you were looking at areas that inventory actually increased month over month. If you're looking for a semi-detached in Northeast, maybe you don't have to compete as much. You have more options to go with. But at the same time, if you're a seller in that area, then you've got to have to price very competitively, make sure your property shows really well. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This year is extremely important to showcase your property very, very well. Your choice of the realtor you go with is going to make all the difference. I have seen a lot of properties with terrible photos and just not presented very well. You have to use all types of marketing. I specialize in social media marketing. We have several platforms that we go hard at. We promote your property to get as many eyeballs on it as possible. And we even go through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of it. And that way your property gets more exposure because there's sometimes the type of searches that people have set up on Realtor doesn't really work. And sometimes you're just above the price range that they're looking for, but their property hits every checkbox that they want. And in order to get them, you have to target them from different areas. And so if you want a full-on proper listing that is going to maximize the value and dollar value that you're going to get for your property, definitely reach out. I will give you a different game plan to help you win this year, depending on when your property should go on market, how good your property is. A lot of great properties that I'm seeing right now, I am telling them to hold on listing till peak spring because that's when they'll be able to take full advantage of the market versus properties that are missing things such as a basement suite or a garage compared to other homes in their area or have the one lesser bedroom. Now's the time to go on market and also strategically price it and showcase your property so that you get maximum dollar value. And Finally, the most important thing is if you're looking to upsize. So if you're looking to go from an apartment to row to semi-detached or just a bigger home within your own segment, now is the time you want to do it, because what you can do, and most people don't know this, you can put a significantly longer possession timeline. So imagine that home that you buy now that you want to move into, you could easily put a 2 to 3 month possession timeline and sell your property later, so that you can get tens of thousands of dollars on both sides. You can benefit on the purchasing side right now, and you can benefit on the sales side later. So definitely reach out, different strategies for different types of clients, and I would love to help inform you and provide you all these data points that could help you make a better decision going forward and help you win in 2025. Now we're going to take a look at very specific data points for depending on each property type and also each area. Definitely not going to get into every single number. If you understand how these numbers work and what they actually mean, feel free to pause and actually read into it. If you have any further questions of what it means, leave a comment below and I'll 100% get back to you. What I really want to focus on is areas that have seen significant growth both year over year and month over month. And that is what is really important for a property you're looking to sell and if you want to understand where your property sits. So as far as the biggest gains year over year, when it comes to detached properties, it's been city center and the west. You can see 5.69% for city center, 5.43% for the west. And as far as month over month gains go, we are looking at 3.14% in the west and a decline of 0.76% when it came to east. So this is what I mean by you're going to see this is a year where the market separates itself. Good areas go first, and they will continue seeing significant gains as that's where buyers prefer to be, and they're not forced into other areas that are less preferable, such as east. So 3.14% is a good month-over-month gain to start and kick off the spring market. As far as semi-detached goes, again, significant gains in city center for 6%, and west again leading at 6.37% for year over year. Month over month, again, west doing significantly well, 3.41%, and a decline in northeast of 0.25% as the loser of the month. And then when we look into apartments, you can see again, northwest and west. These two always lead the market first when the spring kicks. That's where the buyers try to flood. And if they're not able to get a property, then they start going to south or north. And then after that, they go to southeast. Southeast still great and a lot of preference, but that's just the order of things of how the gains flow. And then northeast and east are the final ones in the table. So northeast and west, 3.67% and 6.13% year-over-year gains. And as far as month-over-month benchmark pricing goes, Northwest saw a 2.5% increase, and North saw an increase of decrease of 0.39%. And then as far as townhomes go, year-over-year increase of 5.36% for Northwest, and East saw a gain of 8.98%, which is amazing. And it's just a lot of flip properties there, great entry price point for people to buy townhomes into, and there was a lot of supply of townhomes recently in that area, so that's also possibly contributed to this sudden gain. But month over month, you can see there's still a decline of 0.07%, almost negligible, and West saw an increase of 2.49%. So West is obviously doing very well across all property types, both year over year and month over month, and it's just a great area, great community to buy a property in. Now, how does this all collect into a single graph that we can look at the market and understand what the market's doing? Right here, you can see the benchmark pricing has continued to trend up this month. And as far as sales go, we were pretty much flat between these 2 months, but then come Jan and Feb, we saw a little bit of improvement. And then towards the second half of March, buyers really took on the market and jumped in and tried to catch up on those good deals. But inventory, in fact, jumped a lot more. And now I expect this to actually continue up quite a bit. We're going to have a lot more inventory that we saw, for example, in 2024 or in the last 2 and 3 years. And it's going to be a lot healthier market, more balanced conditions for majority of the market. Some parts of the market will actually also be in a strong buyer's market, depending on the amount of disadvantage that the sellers will be in. And then there are going to be certain tight parts of the market, especially detached in really good areas, that will continue remain in seller's market. And that's why, depending on what property type you have to sell in Calgary this year, you would have to position yourself differently depending on where you sit and what matches you based on your property type. And so that was it for this month's Calgary market report. Hopefully, it was detailed enough for you to understand what the market is doing and all the different shifting dynamics that we're expecting in 2025 going forward. Like I told you before in my previous videos, 2025 is going to be a very defining year for the Calgary real estate market. Really good properties are going to shine and go through really well and sell super fast, all above list, and show really well on the market versus other properties that don't really match general buyer criteria or have disadvantages attached to them are going to have a tougher time selling. The other way goes around for buyers. Buyers are going to have a harder time buying those good homes, which is why now's a great time before that spring market craziness hits. And for those of you who have been remotely there for the last 2 or 3 years in the Calgary real estate market, will know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, we're not going to have that same level of craziness where it goes within 2 hours, but really good properties are still going within 1 or 2 days right now in this market. If you have any more questions about the Calgary real estate market, you want to talk about the economy, the macroeconomics, or what you think about the Trump tariffs, or the politics, or like all the policies that the politicians are announcing and are going to come effect on the housing market. For example, the removal of GST. In fact, most people don't even realize that GST doesn't even apply on resale homes. And buyers are trying to wait on the sidelines when they don't even want to buy a new home. New homes are the only ones that are going to get that GST removal. But even that, what do you think is going to happen to buyer pricing? If tariffs hit, construction costs go up and GST is removed, the builders will have more leeway to increase their pricing and adjust for that, try to get more money out of you into their pockets instead of it going to the government. So there's a lot of shifting dynamics in this market. Very important to understand based on what type of product you're going for, where you stand, and what's the best way for you to win in 2025. Don't just subscribe to the general sentiment, your everyday news. One thing I joke about all the time and I tell people is don't listen to your 3Bs. Which is don't listen to your butcher, don't listen to your barber, and definitely don't listen to your bartender. A lot of water cooler talk, by the time it reaches the grassroots level of everybody talking about it, chances are you're already on the wrong side of things if you listen to them, because you have to be able to see where the market's going and not where the market's at or where the market's been. A lot of fear takes time to shift, and when things shift, they shift very fast. And so that's why it's important to be informed by data and understand the intricacies of the market and not just subscribe to general sentiment. And therefore, if you have any questions, definitely put them down in the comments. I would love to know your opinions on the Calgary real estate market or Canada overall. And it's super easy to get in touch with me. My links are in the description. It's very easy to book a consultation call for an hour, absolutely no obligations. We will chat about your personal situation, where you are, what your short, mid, and long-term goals are, and exactly design you a game plan so that you can win in 2025. I look forward to talking to you guys, and I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do subscribe. It helps me reach more people like you and provide value to buyers, sellers, and investors in this market. When there is so much chaos, I hope to provide just pure data that will help inform your decisions and help more people win in this market. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care.